How do you get in on God?
Well, I mean, one way that I do it is I go into a garden and I work in the garden. Or another way is to get into a relationship with people, find out what their struggles are, what their successes are. Another way is to cook food for other people. I mean, amazing stuff happens around a table. I mean, there's a reason why the Eucharist is a central element of the Christian faith. It's not just some pious ritual, right?
Tell me about it as just somebody off the street. Like, why is that beautiful?
Yeah.
Not some like religious thing that you guys do.
Yeah, I mean, we can mystify the Eucharist for sure, right? But I like to take people to John 6, right, which is where Jesus describes himself as the bread of life. And what Jesus says is, unless you eat me, you don't have life in you. And you can hear that on the surface level and say, well, that's just disgusting, right? That's cannibalism. But that's not what it is. Jesus is saying, like, when you eat this bread, right, at the Eucharist or wherever, what you're doing is you're taking me inside of you so that I can be the presence in you that transforms you to live a new life. Because people, they come to the table, any table, with all kinds of hungers, right? It's not just dietary stuff, right? It's emotional stuff, it's relational stuff, it's all kinds of things that people are hungry for. And Jesus says, you're going to keep being hungry all the time unless you get transformed by me. Right? And what is that transformation about? Well, it's about no longer living a life that's all focused on you, right? That's obsessed by your own insecurities, your own anxieties, your own fears. And it turns you outward to others so that you can receive the blessings that others are to you, that places are to you, right?
You gotta lose it to find it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Paul says it best, you know, it's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me, right? And the point is not to say that you don't count or you don't matter. It's that you have to learn to let Jesus into your life, because when that happens, you start to live your life for the first time. Because your life now is a life that acknowledges the presence of others, recognizes how much you need others and how others need you. Right? It builds you into the kind of person who can be a nurturing, celebrating presence with others. Right? One of the astounding things, I believe, is that we're surrounded by a world of beautiful gifts that are meant to be cherished, and we don't even see it. Right? We don't even see it. Right? Thomas Traherne, who was this great British poet, says, the world is paradise, but nobody notices. And as a result, we create hell on earth.
And put up a parking lot.
And you got Joni Mitchell, man.
Yeah,
put
brother.
it there.
Yeah, brother.
Put it there, man. Yeah, I mean, exactly. I mean, you know, you can say a lot about Joni Mitchell, but she nailed that one. Because we're just sort of sleepwalking through our world. We're on autopilot for our relationships. And we don't have real conversations. You know, we're happy with pseudo food, and so deprive ourselves of the taste of the flavors of this world.
What do you mean pseudo food? Are we missing out on God by not having real food?
Well, the food thing is a complicated question, right? Because there's a lot of folks
I'm
who are
in that flow of the paradise, though. You know?
Yeah, but you know, I mean, as I said earlier, you know, food is God's love made to be nutritious and delicious. And so when you serve people really good food and you look what happens to their faces and they say, wow, I had no idea that this is possible. The point is that food is what you need to be alive. And by alive, I don't mean just, you know, are your muscles moving? Are your bones staying together? I mean, to be alive is to be energized by life and inspired to want to go out into life and see how you can make something beautiful.
A Whopper doesn't fire you up into co-creation?
Well, you know, every once in a while a Whopper might be okay, but you know, you keep eating those Whoppers and pretty soon you're going to be crawling on the ground because your arteries are clogged and you're fat and all you want to do is sit on the couch, right? That's not the kind of life that inspires you, okay? I mean, Jesus says, I want people to have life abundant. And the reality is that we got a food system right now, we've got a work world that is totally stressing out people, exhausting people, and making them sick. And so the only way that people can make it through their days is with a steady stream of pharmaceuticals, pills, right? That's not life abundant. If you got to have a narcotic to make it so that you can get on with your life.
The longest lines in my suburbs are pharmacy things and Chick-fil-A.
Oh yeah, but and I'm not knocking pharmacy.
I'm in both those lines, brother.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking pharmaceuticals
No,
because the truth is that there's a lot of reason why people need them, and so what I'm saying is, don't knock people who use the pharmaceuticals, but find ways to make our society one in which we don't need all these things, right?
What does that new society look like? What is abundant life?
Well, I mean, basic things, right? Fundamentals again, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good food, right? Because if you're eating good food, your body's just going to do a lot better, okay? If we're talking about a work world that's totally stressed out, then you got to have talks with your boss and with your colleagues and say, look, the work we're doing, it's not making us more alive. It might be making some big bossman rich, but why should we diminish our lives and the lives of each other so that somebody in Wall Street can be rich? I think Christians need to have hard conversations about the way we think about our work. But then we got to think about our work environments, right? Our homes, right? There are homes that you can build and live in that help people feel more alive, right? So things like how we heat our homes, how many windows we have in our homes, do we have access to green space? Because we know that these are things that help people feel more alive, right? There are places that you go into and you say, man, if I have to work in here all day long, I'll be dead, right? These cubicles without windows, all you do is look at a screen. That's just depressing.
I might talk back to somebody, be short when they ask me for my ID.
Right. I mean, it's soul deadening, right? Now, how many Christians think that architecture is an issue of the gospel? Not many. I think it is, right? Or think about the numbers of people who spend 2 hours commuting in their cars in gridlock every day. What does that do to your soul, right? These are things, bad food, bad work environments, stressful work environments, bad living arrangements. All of these things contribute to our ill health, which means they get in the way of abundant life. So Christians are got to be figuring out, well, how do we change these very mundane, practical things that typically don't show up in sermons? So I think, getting people to ask the really basic questions about what kind of a life do we have? And not life in the abstract. I'm talking about life in terms of, what does your morning look like? What's on your kitchen table? Right? What are you doing for fun? Right? How many relationships are you nurturing and are being nurtured by? Right? These are the really fundamental questions.
What does play have to do with salvation?
Play is about fun, right? And play is about helping your body release some of the tension that will accrue just ordinarily. I mean, even if you try to live a life that is not really stressful, it's just going to accumulate in you, right? And so play is important because that's where you work out some of this stress. And here's the thing, right? God wants us to have fun. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to accept because they think God's this big judge in the sky who's waiting for you to screw up so he can kick you in the head. Well, that's hugely damaging, right? And I think, and this is something that I'm wanting to talk about more and more now, is we talk about how sin infiltrates the human heart so that we can't live properly. Sin also infects our human hearts so we can't think properly. And what happens is when you're in this context of a sinful way of operating,
What's sin?
Sin is just disordered relationships. It's unlove is what it is, right? So if you don't have love in you, right, you can't recognize a God of love. If you've got only anger and hatred in you, or suffering and pain, the God that you're going to believe in is an angry God, a suffering God. And that's not helpful, right? The most astounding thing to learn when you read the Bible is that God loves. And the only way you're going to know this God of love is through love. So we got all kinds of people who are speaking for God that don't have an ounce of love in them. And you think, well, I don't know what God you're talking about. But this angry God that you got, this God who's just waiting to kill everybody who this person doesn't like, that kind of God we should just walk away from.
Because they're angry reading the Bible, interpreting angry because they're not reading it through love.
Yeah, I mean, again, love is not just some romantic, pat yourself on the back kind of feeling.
What's love?
Love is offering your life to others, right? The way we understand what the love of God is through Jesus, because Jesus is the embodiment of that love. And what you see Jesus doing is continually giving himself away to others. And that means things like when he sees people who's hungry, he goes and feeds them. When he sees people who are lonely, he goes and befriends them. When he sees people who are sick, he goes and heals them, right? It's putting yourself out for others.
How often do you have to do that?
It's all the time.
Shoot!
I know.
I thought that was just for
It's hard,
the
right?
end-year program.
I know, and the thing is, it's really nice to say, well, I'll do that every once in a while, right? When it's convenient. That's my temptation.
To justify my other actions.
Right, exactly. I got all these bad habits, and so every once in a while I'll do something nice, and then I'll be off the hook, right? And that's really tempting. But the thing is that doing these things that Jesus encourages us to do and inspires us to do opens up what love looks like, right? And as John's gospel says this in really succinct formulation, right? If you want to hold on to your life, you're going to lose it. But if you give it away, right, like that seed that goes into the ground, you're going to produce amazing fruit, right? The one seed produces 100. Right? And that's the miracle of love, right? When you give love away, it's not like love decreases. Love grows by giving away. Yeah, the more you love, the more love is in the world, and the better the world becomes. That's profound stuff. But it's really hard because to do it, you have to let go. And there's nothing harder than to let go.
It's a hard sell, brother.
It's really hard. And that's why you need other people to help you, right?